Wednesday. First week back after 2 week vacation, and oh god, well, like I said, I'd love to be doing Doctor Who news reports for you, but I haven't really heard anything solid anytime recently. There's just not a whole lot of news flowing other than for like the typical Big Finish stuff, things like that. And uh, so, like I said, I've just been going on and on about random topics because uh, I say, as much as I'd love to have something to tell you, I really don't have much that's worth saying. Because oh heck, even I guess the digital issue for Doctor Who magazine was supposed to have been out earlier today, and it never showed up. So those folks who get the digital version are not all that happy. So I don't know. Maybe that's changed since then. I'll have to go back and double check later. But I love that there's new pictures of Tennant, and I'm like, yeah, we've seen pictures of Tennant in the new costume for the last few months. Ugh. New Sonic, and I'm like, yeah, and we've seen pictures of the new Sonic for months. Well, the thing is, that shouldn't be a surprise if Moffat's coming back, because I heard that months ago that he was probably doing 2 episodes, writing 2 episodes for RTD. I think for the first series of the coming up. So, ugh. So that's not new news to me. It's I know. I go tell somebody else that. Oh. Yeah, I saw the David Copperfield thing. That what do you call it? Shoot, he's gonna be in. Yeah, Bruce Willis. Yeah, is taking a bad. And sadly, it happens to all of us. Sooner or later, something misfires, and the machine wears out. Sadly, it's entropy. It's the way of all things, and a lot of people don't realize it's like we only have a certain amount of time to do this and that, because there's going to be more coming along. And I was glad because they recently, if you've been reading the Undead series, you'll read about this, where the idea of a panacea was brought up. It's like, the problem is, if you release a panacea, which is a fancy word for a thing that can cure every disease, release it on a planet with over 7 billion people, then you'll be overpopulated within like 2 generations. I'm not kidding. The survival conditions, the medical community would collapse. Your economies would fall. It would be utter chaos. All right, UFO hearings. I have not heard anything about it, and even if they were, they're not going to discuss anything meaningful. Here's the thing. One of their biggest problems with, like, say, Roswell and all that. And I love how people are still saying, well, no one keep a secret that long. Over 300 people came forward from the town of Roswell over the years and said, look, this happened. Plus the fact you're trying to say that Major Jesse Marcel, who later retired as Colonel Jesse Marcel, a guy who, flew in World War II, was also a test pilot, had flown everything we had, plus some of the stuff we had captured from the Germans, misidentified a weather balloon. He was also the chief intelligence officer for the 509th Bomb Group, which was the only bomb group we had that carried the atomic bomb. And this was before the U.S. Air Force, by the way. This was under the United States Army Air Corps. Air Force wouldn't be established until the National Security Act. It just happened to happen a few months after Roswell, when the Air Force was established, Central Intelligence Agency was established, the NSA was established, and all that. Like I said, the problem is this. Let's say, now, how are you going to explain to the other countries of the world, oh yeah, we made contact with them back, almost a century ago now? They're going to be like, huh? No, I believe there was a recovery. At least one, and that was definitely Roswell. Because it just happened to happen before they had an established procedure for it. This was back when they used to be honest with the public. So, the leader of the base, and I can't remember his name, but here's a guy who screwed up so badly also, but he went on to be the youngest promoted brigadier general since Custer. And orders a press release. And when you look at all the things that happened in and around the Roswell incident, especially the fact that you've had several deathbed confessions, why would these grizzled, dying World War II veterans sit there in their deathbed and lie to their families about something they had seen? It makes no sense unless something did happen. Not to mention you had the testimony of the funeral director got the call in the middle of the night, asking him if he had, I can't remember if it was several child-sized coffins, and could they be hermetically sealed. He's like, yes, we have been. And I don't know why people think it's so outlandish, because the problem is they want to prevent panic. You have to remember, look at what happened with the War of the Worlds broadcast. And that wasn't even real. And people went apeshit. Okay? And, a lot of people are like, well, NASA should have. If NASA found anything, they're not going to tell you. That's because of I might be butchering the name, so you may want to go look this up. I believe it's called the Brookings Report, which concluded that we were basically not ready, and that also NASA, it's supposed to be a civilian organization, but anything that they find can be classified by the president if it's, not up to par, so to speak. And they concluded, basically we're not ready. Which is why I'll still never believe that malarkey about the face on Mars being a couple of mesas. Even if they had found something there, then they were never going to tell you. Just like, no one discusses all the anomalies we found on the moon. You have to really dig to find those. All the nifty little things I found on the moon. One of which was one I used in the story for Death Moon. Like I said, our moon is a very peculiar object, you know. It's the only satellite, natural satellite in the entire solar system. It has a nearly perfect circular orbit, perfectly eclipses the sun. Just happens to be, you know, and doesn't rotate relative to the planet it goes around, and it's mostly hollow. Now, am I saying that it's like this one jerk off was saying it was a giant alien soul collector machine? I'm like, are you kidding? Oh my gosh. Yeah, our moon is very peculiar compared to every other one we found. Which is why I put the, I used it, as the basis. It was one of the reasons. Also, the fact that, yeah, the kill the moon story had just happened, and I was like, oh god, then that's what really made. Yeah, it is. It was on one of the Apollo missions, because on the previous Apollo missions we had left seismic, you know, equipment on the moon. And it was one of the later Apollo missions, and forgive me if I can't remember which one right now. They deliberately ejected the, I think it was the Lunar Excursion Module on a trajectory that would slam into the moon. And when it did, the seismic equipment all over the moon went off for an hour. The moon rang like a bell. So it could just be the way it was formed, or it could just be that. I'm not saying there's something going, evil, intelligent, weird that's going on the moon, but our moon is very, very peculiar, just to say. And look at, and look at Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, comes back and he barely says a word about it. He did, I can count on one hand, I think, how many public appearances Neil Armstrong did after, he came back from the moon. Well, I have my doubts about the Loch Ness Monster and all that, because there's been a lot of things later that were revealed to be hoax photos. So I have to remain on the fence. Bigfoot, on the other hand, like I said, there's been more evidence to prove there's something out there than there isn't. Come on, all those footprints are fake. I'll go, yeah, footprints that have compression lines. Some of them have broken toes, and some of the footprints were so detailed you can actually see the dermal ridges, which would take laser sculpting on your quote-unquote fake foot, plus the fact, so I can't remember if it was Cooper or all that. Yeah, it was one of the astronauts said something happened in Roswell. He talked, he grew up in that area, and, he talked to the people from that area. And like I said, next time they tell you they can't keep something that secret, look up Project Azorian, Azorian. They kept that secret to the world until they finally told the Soviets what they were up to. Also, look at all the men. I can't remember the name. I think one of the names of the cargo ships was the Eagle 76. It was sank in Rhode Island Sound or something like that in spring of 45. And they didn't tell any of the guys. They didn't collect their Purple Hearts till 70 years later. And of course, everyone who had passed since then received one anonymously. Sorry, not anonymously. Post death. I know the word's on the tip of my mind, but I'm getting old. Posthumously. That's why I was saying, and received it, because they didn't want to admit that a U-boat had been operating that close to the northeast American shore. And meanwhile, if you look around, there's U-boats sank all over the place or just outside and inside U.S. waters. A couple of them you can dive on. They're like maybe 120 feet down. Because there was a rumor going around the Nazis had found a way to launch the V-1 buzz bomb off the decks of U-boats, and they didn't want to panic anybody. Also, look up the family who died as a result, during World War II, as a result of a Japanese firebomb in the middle of the United States. Nobody knew about that because it was kept secret. It was, unless you look it up. That's also the way we knew about how the jet stream works and all that, was because of the Japanese firebombs that were launched via balloon. But I got to get inside. I'm already a couple of minutes overdue. We can talk about this forever. So take care, everybody. Please enjoy your Thursdays. Be kind, be calm, be safe. We'll see you on the flip side. Have a great Thursday, y'all.